Hey, good morning. This is Zach from Crossgates Family Fitness, and today we're going to be going over golf fitness. As you see here, ways to increase your distance but decrease your pain, right? So a lot of golfers, the number one thing they want to do is hit longer, hit further, but a lot of times they're also in pain or scared of hurting themselves or have experienced it in the past. So we're going to go through ways to screen yourself, to make sure that you have the body that can actually perform the swing optimally. So we're going to learn what the perfect golf swing looks like today. We're going to learn how your swing and your body are connected and what might be causing problems or injuries and things like that. We're going to go through a few screens today that are going to basically tell you how that might be impacting your body. And then, of course, last part, how to hit bombs down the fairway, right? Everyone wants to hit a little bit further. So that's going to be our main topics for today. So the first thing I want to do is get into a little bit of my background. So I've been in the fitness industry / medical for about 11, 12 years now. I started out in athletic training and physical therapy. I worked in a PT clinic for about 5 years before I made a transition into the fitness world. Mainly because I felt like I wanted to be on the forefront. I like to call my training prehab. If I do everything I need to do right with you as a trainer, then I know you shouldn't need to go to a physical therapist. And that's my hope, or an orthopedic and things like that. So that's kind of my background. I'm well-rounded, but I've also dealt with a lot of people that have had injuries and rehabbed out of them and things like that. Well, about 4 years ago, I moved to Miami, Fort Lauderdale area, and that's where I really picked up golf. I had played it a few times, in my early 20s, but it was more so just for the good time, hang out with friends, and it was usually maybe 2 or 3 times a year. So I wasn't really trying to get good. Well, when I moved to, one of the golf meccas of the world, where golf is every 2.5 miles or so, there's a course, I really wanted to actually try to get better at golf. I've been an athlete my whole life, so I wanted to try to pick up golf, knowing that I could play it long-term throughout my entire life. So I've been CFSC certified, which is Certified Functional Strength Coach. I've worked with kids who were as young as 6, all the way up to professional athletes. I've trained 90-year-olds and everything in between. And one of the common themes is the training isn't very much different when you're working with a 7-year-old, a professional athlete, or a 90-year-old. As humans, we all move very similar, or we need to move very similar, and have basic movement patterns to get through our daily life without injuries. Now, some things are obviously more sports performance based. Some things are just trying to get through your daily life and get off the toilet, get out of bed, all of those things. And some are to improve your golf game and get off the toilet and out of bed, right? And so in my quest for trying to figure out how to become a better golfer myself, I learned about the Tpi Certification, which is Titleist Performance Institute. And basically Titleist realized that there was a huge gap in the industry of professional golfers and amateurs, where Titleist realized they made all their money was amateurs. They're the ones who are buying the most golf balls, getting more clubs to try to increase their distance. So they knew that they could make more money if they tapped into the amateur market, right? So they also realized from a financial standpoint, they needed those amateurs to play longer. And to play longer, you need to be out of pain and you need to be in physical shape to do it, right? So they created a system of screens, which we're going to go through a few of them today, that basically they've tracked through research to show that these screens have the biggest impact on the way that you're swinging a golf club, and also they know what is optimal for you. Okay, and we're going to talk about that in a little bit. So that's a little bit of my background, and so I've been certified for 3 years now and worked with golfers, but just athletes in general, and the great thing is all of these things apply to everyone. So first question we're going to go through is, what does the perfect swing look like to you? So we got 3 of y'all in here, so tell me one characteristic of a perfect swing that you think. What's one thing that you would want to see in a perfect swing?
Full shoulder turn.
All right, full shoulder turn. Good follow through. What about you, bud? Balance. Good. Awesome. So all of those are things that you need to have in a golf swing, right? So we're going to go play a little game. Whose swing do you want? All right. The GOAT, Tiger Woods. How many of y'all would love to have Tiger Woods' golf swing? Maybe not now, but 6 months ago, right? Who would love to have his golf swing? He looks balanced. He's got a good shoulder turn, right? And I'm sure he's got a good follow through after that. What about this funky looking thing from Jim? All right. Now that looks completely different than Tiger Woods, but Jim's made a lot of money, a lot of money on tour. He's one of the highest grossing tour players in history with a swing that looks like that. So how does that make him millions and millions of dollars? Because most people, if you saw the amateur golf person on the course and he was swinging like that, you'd be like, come on, man, you got to get the club around, point the club face at the target, bigger shoulder turn, all those different things, right? What about Adam Scott? He is known as one of having the prettiest swings in golf, right? Tempo, swing, follow through, balance. It just looks gorgeous. When you see him swing a golf club, it's like, that's what I want to swing like, right? And then Jack, okay? A lot of things, I know me and Mark have talked about this. That front foot, look at that lead foot coming up. Look at his club face behind his head, not pointing at the target. But I'd say he's a pretty good golfer, right? So my main thing with this is, so what is the perfect swing? And the answer is infinity. There's a million perfect swings, but there's a perfect swing for you and your body and what it can do. So some of these screens that we're going to go through, if you fail the screen, that doesn't mean you can't be a good golfer, because there's pro golfers who fail some of these screens. When you look at, let me go back to Jim. If you go back to Jim Furyk, you look at his right shoulder. See how that forearm is turned down? Okay? Elbow is pointing down. He lacks external rotation in his shoulder. So he can't get that forearm back there like you see in Adam Scott, where that right forearm is pointing to the sky, right? So, but that's a perfect swing for him based on what his body can do. So the TPI screen is designed to find what your body is capable of, okay, so that your swing coach can ultimately decide what to do in your swing to change things. Maybe it's flaring out your front foot because you lack internal rotation on your front hip so that you can get a good follow through. Because if you don't have that internal rotation on that front hip, you won't have a good follow through. And you might be early extending coming into the ball. So there's a perfect swing for you. Now my goal as a fitness TPI certified person is I'm not here to tell you how to swing a perfect swing. My goal is to get your body working optimally so that you can go back and work with a swing coach or work on it yourself and have more ability to do things in your swing that can enhance your swing, whether it's hit further or be out of pain and those things, okay? So I'm not here to tell you how to swing a golf club. I can't give you a golf lesson, okay? I know very, very basics. I can analyze your swing and tell you what you are doing, and I can also screen your body and tell you how those two things might be correlated. But my job as a fitness person is to increase your mobility, increase your flexibility, increase your power and your strength. Okay? And then you go back and work with either a swing coach or work on it yourself, and now you have more ability to do different things in your golf swing or to be out of pain. All right, so this is what the TPI screen looks like. This is a screenshot from my app that I run through with a client, and it's 16 total screens. Okay? And we screen everything from posture to hip rotation, shoulder rotation, your ability to squat, even down to your wrist and your neck. Because all of those things, every little thing on this screen has a major impact on how you're swinging the golf club. So there's 16 total screens that we go through to basically figure out what's going on. And even some of these have breakdowns inside of those screens as well to see what your body is actually capable of right now. Okay, so this also tells me if I'm designing a program for you, what kind of things I need to put into that program so that we can improve this. So basically the way that it's screened and scored is either red, yellow, or green. Red being that it has a major impact on your golf swing. Yellow could mean that it could have an impact on your golf swing. And green is basically a green light. You're good, don't have any issues. It might just be a technique issue. So first thing we're going to do, we're going to get into some testing. So y'all ready to do some of the tests? All right. So what we're going to do here, y'all are going to go ahead and stand up for me. All right. And you can do them in place. So the first test is your pelvic tilt test. Okay. So usually when I start with someone, the first thing I'm going to want to do is assess their golf posture. Okay, what they look like if I'm looking at them from the back view down the fairway and what they look like. Okay, so I'm going to do the screen first and then I'm going to have y'all perform the screen. Okay, so what I want you to do, we're going to go feet shoulder width, kind of just a 5-iron golf posture. Okay, and you can turn this side if you want. There you go, that way I can see you a little better. So just your 5-iron golf posture. Okay, good. Let me take a look real quick at some of you. Good, good. Good? All right. And so the next thing I want you to do is take those hands. You're going to be in that golf posture. You're going to go arms right across your chest. Stay in that golf posture. The first thing I want to see if you can do, can you arch your lower back? Good. And then can you tuck your butt underneath? Yeah. And then so now we go, let's go back. Let's go arch the lower back. Good. And let's tuck the butt. Good. All right. So, what's your name, bud? Mike. Mike? Come up here, Mike, if you don't mind being a test subject for me. All right. So, you're going to come up here. So, we're going to turn sideways so that the camera can see. Perfect. All right. So, back into that 5-iron posture. So, there you go. Get into that golf swing. So, the first thing I want you to do. So, this is your golf posture. Good. First thing, so we can see he's got a slight S curve, okay, at the bottom in his posture. So, I want to see you arch your lower back. Good. So, you got a little bit right in there. Now, let me see you tuck your butt. So tuck it under. So not very much motion, right? So you kind of went back to where your neutral was. Okay? So good. I appreciate it. And then I'm going to have you come up as well so we can get a couple others. And then I'm going to explain what I'm looking at. And what was your name again? Diane. Diane. All right. So 5-iron golf posture. Arms across the shoulders. So let me see you arch the lower back. Good. So a little bit of motion. Now let me see you tuck it under. Good. Arch the lower back again. Good. And then tuck it under. Pretty good. The only thing that I see a little bit concerning is, one, your setup posture. You start a little bit in S, but then also most of your motion is coming a little bit higher in between those thoracic and lumbar spine. She's over her toes. Yep, that too. But I'm thinking, what I'm looking at here is just hip ability to move your hips. So if you're looking at my belt buckle, and the reason is, I appreciate it. So you can go right back over there. So the reason is, the way this affects your golf swing. One, people that start in S posture, typically, we'll have what we call reverse spine angle, right? So if you don't know what that is, so when you go back into your golf swing, your head is behind your hips, okay? And the reason is if you start, and I'm going to kind of exaggerate it so you can see, when you start in this S posture, you're cutting down your ability to rotate into your back hip. So what happens is the only way you can rotate and get more range of motion is to go back. Okay? And then what happens is the only way to get back behind the ball is to whip in the opposite direction, and most people will have the right side lower back pain. So if you're a golfer and you have right side lower back pain, it's most probably due to your ability in your setup to be neutral position. But now for you, so your struggle was being able to tuck your butt. Okay? When we go into our downswing, so as we rotate into that back hip, our hips do go into a slight anterior tilt. The problem is if I start there, then I have nowhere to go. But if I'm starting neutral, as I rotate, I'm going to create a small amount of anterior tilt, which means my pelvis jumps forward, my belt buckle is dumping towards my back foot. Now, when I go into my downswing, we actually tuck under as we go through to clear that front hip. So if I'm in that anterior tilt and I don't have the ability to tuck under and create space in that front hip, I'm going to jam. So usually you're going to be someone who slides into the ball. Or you're going to be someone who early extends to create room in the front of the hip. So, which just means those hips are going towards the ball on your downswing. So, for you, if that's, I know you mentioned having lower back pain. Was it your right side, or do you remember? It's been a while. Yeah, I know. Yeah, okay. So it could be just a setup position because you actually have the ability to rotate. It's just where you're starting at. So, getting a little bit stronger here and correcting your starting position can have a drastic impact on where you're feeling it. So your startup is where you're could processing.
You're reaching out like this. If he takes a picture, you're here. Where's
your
balance point?
Yeah.
This is you.
Yeah.
Yes, because this point, that point,
yeah.
Your feet have to be straight up and down. The more you extend out, the more
yeah.
your back has to do all the work.
Yeah. So, and there's going to be a bunch of things that go on. A lot of it has to do with limb lengths and things like that, torso length, leg length, that are going to affect posture. Because you're going to see someone like a Brendan Todd, who's really tall. You're going to see him, he swings his 60 degree, and he looks like he's putting because he's so tall. Or you're going to see someone like an Adam Scott, who's a little bit longer torso. He stands up and he's hitting his driver, and it looks like he's standing almost straight up and down. So limb lengths have a lot to do with that as well. All right, so that was the first test. Now we're going to go into the second one. Super important, your ability to rotate your pelvis, right? So here's what we're going to do now. We're going to go back into that 5-iron posture. You can face me on this one, okay? So back into that 5-iron posture, shoulders, arms across the shoulders. And I want to see, can you rotate the hips without turning the shoulders? Yeah. Yep. So let's see. Keep going. Nice and small. Good. Yeah. And let me see yours, Mark. So go here for me. Good. Go just to your normal setup. There you go. So right there, arms across. And then just rotate the hips. Good. Come back the other way. So don't think golf swing. Think just rotate. Without turning the shoulders now. Yeah, so we got some funky looking ones. You ready to come up here? I'm going to bring you up here again. And so yours was good. I would look for maybe just a little bit more. But that.
She's a woman, they don't do that.
Yeah, they're good, right? All right, so.
They got nothing this, they don't do this.
They got way more control in the hips than most of us. All right, so let's go. We're going to face the camera this way. All right, so go back down to it. So remember, without moving the shoulders, just rotating the hips. Good. All right. So you got a little bit better at keeping the shoulders square, but I would tell you we call it Elvis. All right, you were knocking the knees, locking them out, right? So I want to see rotate without.
Well, I have to get my shoulder.
Exactly. So now if I could create more range of motion in your hips and more flexibility in their hips, you'd have the ability to rotate without. There's going to be knee movement, but I want to see it without this, because this, usually what happens, is when you did that, the shoulder.
Can I keep this on plane and rotate like this?
So no, because here's in the golf swing what happens. The most important part of a golf swing is your ability to disassociate your lower body from your upper body, right? So if we can't, in a simple position like this, if we struggle to rotate the hips without moving the shoulders, it's going to be very hard for us to control that in a violent motion of a golf swing.
This is what you want.
So, a little bit better, just a little knee action, but we can get those hips a little bit more loose, for sure. And then Mark, come see for me. Come see. You mind having your butt to the camera for a second? No, we'll hide the face. We'll hide the face.
As long as they don't mind.
Yeah, so we're going to go right here, same thing, and I want you to rotate just the hips. All right, and keep going. So, he's got a little bit, we see a lot of knee action, and we see a lot of shifting side to side away from the midline. So if you watch this one little belt loop right here, you can see that it's traveling very much laterally. So a lot of times what that creates is that sway and slide in the golf swing. Thank you, Mark. Appreciate it. All right, so just creating the ability, one, to have the ability to do that and the range of motion to do that without having to come from the knees or from a side-to-side motion. A lot of times what we'll see a lot of people do is we'll see them hip hike. We kind of call it like the bear scratching his butt on the tree, okay, where they're like this. We see that a lot, okay, or we see the knee action, or we see people that can't keep the shoulders still at the same time. So sometimes it's a stability issue. So if someone is rotating and they're kind of just moving the upper body just a little bit, I would go over and I would hold their upper body and see if this improves. If it improves, then I know that it's just a stability issue from the upper body. Yeah?
What if you have very bad knees? I have no cartilage.
So that's going to be something that affects you.
If I swing violently with the lower part of my body, I get bone on bone.
Yeah, so one thing would be working with your coach, obviously, to dial it in. But if I could get you more mobile and stronger hips, usually knee pain is usually associated with a lack of range of motion in the hips or weaker glutes. So there's other screens in the test that we could go through to see if your glutes are firing properly or if you're using your hamstrings too much or your lower back. But I would tell you that you have a lot of knee movement, so the more you're sliding that knee forward, the more anterior pressure you're going to put on the front of that knee. So a lot of times you'll have in the front inside part of that knee where you're going to experience a lot of knee pain. Now if I can keep you here and get the hips to swivel more, then they don't have to drive forward in your downswing and backswing. Okay? Yeah. So next one, upper body. So T-spine rotation. So you could actually sit down for this one. Okay? And I'll give each one of y'all a club, make it easy on you. Oop. So you're going to put this right across your shoulders, back of the shoulders. Yeah. Old used set. I'm still not good enough to buy a brand new one just yet. All right, so here's what we're going to do. And I'm going to use this yellow one so everyone on camera can see it a little bit better. So what I want you to do, you're going to scoot to the edge of your chair, okay? Club's going to go right across your shoulders. I want you to cross your right leg over your left. Okay? I'm actually going to mirror y'all, so I'm going to go left over right. All right, nice and tall. What I want you to do, squeeze those knees together, and you're going to rotate to the right as far as you can. Good. Now, without trying to side bend, so come up a little bit taller. There you go. Rotate. Good. Awesome. Mark's good. I know he's flexible. I've seen him before. Good. And now you got a little bit of a lean to you. Good. Perfect. And you're good. All right. So now cross the other leg over. So now go left over right. Let's check the other side. Squeeze those knees together and rotate. Good. A little bit more on that side. We can do a little bit better, Mark. Good. And you're way better. So actually, you're a good test subject. Come see. I'm going to have you come up here and do it. And I'm going to switch this out so people on screen can see it with the orange stick. All right, so one thing we want to look at, so what we're looking for is 45 degrees of rotation to both directions, okay? Typically, most people that are injury-free, don't have any kind of ailments, typically they're within a few degrees of each other. So a lot of times people think we can, or they feel like it's easier to rotate to one side, but research actually shows that most people are within just a couple of degrees of each other. Okay, so we're going to go, you got right over left, squeeze those knees. Let's rotate towards me first. Good. So you can see where he's at. He's probably pretty close to the 45-degree mark. Okay, now we're going to cross over left over right. Good. Squeeze the knees. And now let's rotate this way. Look how much further he has on the left side than the back side. So your ability to rotate into that back swing, you're losing distance because you do have a few more degrees of rotation that you can get. Remember, the two easiest ways, thank you, man, I appreciate it. The two easiest ways to hit further is the easiest way is to get more range of motion. The second one is to get stronger and more powerful, right? But increasing the length of your swing, thank you, man, and yours was actually the opposite, Mark. So you had a bigger backswing turn than you did on your front side, but I know you had the injury to the shoulder, which could be affecting your thoracic spine on that side and the muscles and the tightness. So yours is due to injury. So you know that that's going to show up in your swing, could show up like we talked about with casting and things like that and scooping to try to counteract that pattern. So we want to see 45 degrees of rotation in the swing. Okay. Now we know that when you look at the turns, you're like, well, those guys are turning and they look like they're 90 degrees. Well, we know that 60 is coming from the hip, and we have ankle and knee and thoracic, or a slight lumbar spine. So there's more degrees that are adding up to that big turn that you see, the pro guys with. So it's not all coming from your T-spine. But we know that if we can get you into this hip and then turn you out 45 degrees, then we know that you're up there, right? So for you, the easiest way to lengthen that is there's some quick, probably easy breathing drills that we can do that are going to increase that. So would you want to try one real quick? Huh? You want to try one real quick? Yeah, here, I got you. Yeah. All right, so I'm going to show you a breathing drill. So we're going to go right back into that same position. Scoot up towards the edge of the seat for me. So go right to the edge of the chair. There you go. All right, so one of the easiest ways to create more rotation in your thoracic spine, which is that upper part of your spine, right, is to breathe and focus on breathing. Our ribs connect to that thoracic spine, and when we breathe deep, we actually increase the space between those joints and allow for more rotation. All right, so we know your backswing was the side that we needed to work on. So what I want you to do, we're going to practice one deep breath before I have you go into the position, okay? So what I want you, I'm going to put my hand on your back and your chest. I want you to take a huge deep breath, but I want you to fill up mostly my backhand on your upper back, okay? So big deep breath through the nose.
I don't control my lungs. They do what they want.
Yeah, so, but I want you to think, and this is where it takes some training, but because most people breathe and they go, and they do this. And think like you're trying to force air into my hand. It's not going to be perfect. That's okay. So big deep breath. There you go. That's good. And then let it out like you're blowing out candles. Good. All right. So now what I want you to do, we got right over left. We're going to turn to the right. And I want you to side. Oh, you already got more rotation. And I want you to side bend towards your butt cheek. Okay? Good. Now I want you to do a deep breath again. So just right here. There you go. Good. And I want you to deep breath in. Big, 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 big. And blow it out. And then now sink more towards your butt cheek. Good. Give me one more deep breath. Big, big, big. In through that backhand. Perfect. And blow it out. Good. And sink a little more. Good. Come up tall. Squeeze those knees together. Now rotate to the right. Look at that. Like an owl. Way more. So now, I wouldn't tell you to do this right before you go play around because your body's not used to it. So you're going to think, a lot of golfers say, oh, I can go get more rotation. I'll go out on the course right now and go play and hit balls. I wouldn't tell you to go play because it's going to throw your timing off. Because now you have all this extra rotation that you haven't been playing with. But one thing you can do is when you train, this would be what I would tell you to do in your warm-up. This would be one of your drills. So we would do some foam rolling, we would do some breathing, do some stretching, and then we would activate those muscles that help us hold those positions when we're not training them. And over time, you'll naturally get further. And then the other thing is go to the range. You can go to the range, do that breathing drill, activate those muscles, and practice with that new range of motion before going and play around. Because it will throw off your timing and things like that. So you probably won't play as good if you just go and say, I'm going to get more range of motion. That's what I did when I first learned this drill. I was like, oh yeah, perfect.
You do the breath, and then you do this.
Yep. And then you side bend. Yep. And then you breathe.
Then you do it again.
Yep. 2 to 3 breaths, and you can even go both sides too. But immediately you gain probably 20 degrees from where you were. Last time you were about here, and you gained it to about right here. It's pretty quick and easy to see how you can get more rotation in your golf swing. Right? So good. Yeah, you sold already, huh? All right, so again, these are just 3 of the 16 tests that we would do, and all of them have correlations to each other, but really what we're trying to figure out is what your body can do so that now you can start to have more ability to change things in your golf swing, like getting more distance just by getting more rotation, right? Because if you go to a golf swing coach that maybe doesn't assess your body and know that you have a restriction, they're going to say, oh, well, just get your arms higher or flare your back foot open. Well, what if I don't need to flare my back foot open? What if I can be more balanced because I've gained more rotation in your hip and I've did some drills with you to get more rotation here, but now I'm more balanced. Now I can focus on going through impact, because if you flare the back foot, then you're going to decrease your ability to on your follow through to be as powerful as possible. But if I can now turn that foot straight, maybe still keep my front foot flared open for a good downswing, now I can drive through and hit a little bit harder because I've gained that range of motion. A lot of golf swing coaches, they do have TPI swing coaches who are great and who can screen you. But if you go to a swing coach who doesn't screen you, that would be a red alarm for me, because how can you tell me how to swing a golf club if you don't know what my body can do or what positions I can get in to actually swing that golf club, right? So just some of the screens that we can do. So now the important part, right? How to hit bombs. How to hit far, like everybody wants to do. So the main thing that most people do as we age in working out is we stop doing power exercises. We actually lose power at 2 to 3 times the rate that we lose strength. So over every decade. So from 30 to 40, if you're not doing power, and from 40 to 50, you're losing drastic percentages in your power development through your body if you're not training it consistently, right? So the good thing is if you were an athlete when you were really young and you did things for a long time, your body has some of those abilities to bring it back. It's not going to obviously get back to when you were 20, right? But you'll have those muscle fibers that you can retrain to be a little more explosive and gain some distance, okay? Now, TPI talks about you got your diesel engines and you got your jet fuel, okay? Kids who played every sport growing up, year-round, worked out, trained, genetically probably have a little bit more ability level. They're jet fuel. But if you're that person that wasn't really much of an athlete, played sports here and there, didn't really train when you were young, you just showed up and played sports, which I was kind of one of those kids. I didn't know that kids trained for sports performance until I got out of the little old town of Luling, because no one in Luling trains for kids. They do now, but when I was there, they definitely didn't. And so all I did was play sports. So my genetic potential is lower because I wasn't training in the most important years of my life. So if you have kids or know young kids, get them training early. Get them training early. Don't be scared. They're not going to break growth plates. They're actually going to grow more. They're going to increase their growth hormone and not stunt their growth.
I know if you're 11, 12, what's the bottom end of it?
5 to 8. Doesn't mean they need to be doing weights, but getting kids to do races, getting kids to skip and get some coordination, getting kids taking a med ball that's only a pound or 2 and telling them to throw it as far as they can. Kids love games. So it doesn't need to look like our fitness looks, but it needs to be some type of fitness, because there's actually, in the junior program through TPI, they actually talk about there's windows of opportunity to do certain things. And it's different for boys and girls. Girls are usually a year ahead. So when I say these numbers, just know girls are 1 year ahead than guys. But girls will hit their first growth spurt around 4 to 6, boys 5 to 7 or 8. In that time frame, their bones are growing faster than their muscles. And we know our muscles are kind of like rubber bands, right? So if you lengthen that bone, but the muscle takes time to catch up, it's basically pulling that rubber band tighter. So it's actually extremely important to train speed and power during that window. And then they're going to slow down a little bit, okay, before puberty starts. During that time, you can start to do strength exercises or just body weight strength exercises, or skill development is a great time to start working on that. Then you track their second growth spurt, which is puberty. During that time frame, they sprout even more, pulls those rubber bands even tighter, right? Train power again. So from 11 to 14, 15, they need to be hitting power hard, okay? And then let them be that late bloomer, that waits to their junior, senior year of high school where they're really going to take over the people who weren't training and who were just, you might have that kid who's 12 years old and he's on the range and every parent's like, man, that kid's stroke looks amazing. He's great, but he's not training and doing physical activity and power development. Well, guess what? All those other kids, their skill's going to catch up. But guess what? They're going to be hitting the ball 30, 40 yards further than he was, right? So there's windows of opportunity that you want to do it. And even as adults, we can still tap into some of those genetics that we created as kids. Obviously, it's not to the level that they will if we do it early, but we can still get some of that back, right? So here's some exercises that we do. So one that I was talking about for hip stability, right? So these first 3 exercises is how to generate power through our upper body and rotation. But we start out in phases. So we don't just throw you into the hardest phases. We want to create stability first while we do upper body rotation. So this is a half kneeling side toss. And basically what I'm trying to do is keep everything from my waist down as quiet as I can while I generate as much power from my upper body as I can. Okay? And that's just a 4-pound ball, by the way. And my goal is to throw it as hard as I possibly can every single time. Like I'm trying to drive it 400 yards, like Bryson, right? Then the next step is we get you standing. And now I want you to learn how to generate power through the ground and spiral up through that upper body. So now I'm getting my legs forced through the ground and my hips involved. And you'll see it increase a little bit in power. Okay? And so now the next step, we talked about one of the most important parts of the golf swing is disassociation between the hips and the upper body, right? One of the most common mistakes I see people make on the golf course when I go play is I see them with those little whips, with the little ball on the end, and they're trying to create that whipping motion, right? How many of y'all seen that? Do you have one in the bag? Don't be ashamed if you do, all right? So the problem with that is disassociation doesn't come from whipping a ball with your hands. It comes from your left hip starting the turn first. So if you're not at the top of your backswing starting with your hips before you start with the upper body, you're not going to create that disassociation and that whipping motion. So it all starts from the hips. So this is a drill to get my hips going before my upper body. So when you watch it, I start with it in front of me. As I swing it back, I'm moving towards the target. And basically all it is obviously still creating as much power as I can, but I'm trying to get my lower body going before my upper body. So I'm already moving into that rotation while I'm still here. So I'm up and I'm here, okay? So just a drill. So that's how we would progress you. So day 1 as a client, I wouldn't necessarily go just to this. Like, would it kill you to start there? No. But if I was working on a client with a client, I'm going to start at the first level because I want to make sure that they have that adequate stability first, right? One of the other screens in the test that we didn't do today is a single leg balance drill where I need to see that you can close your eyes and balance on one leg, which is a lot harder than you think. Because if you can't, then you won't even be able to transfer energy into your leg. So we got to work on stability first before we start trying to add power and rotation into that, right? So next, we're going to get into 3 lower body exercises, right? So everyone knows ground force is the most important thing. You see guys now coming off the ground when they swing their golf club. It's because they're creating so much force into the ground, right? So here's some drills to work on lower body power and creating more ground force. So just a simple box jump is phase one. This is where we start. And I'm actually working with a client now, and he asked me, why are we stepping down from the box? And why are we jumping to a box? And why do you want it to be so quiet? And why do you keep bugging me about it? Right? And I'll tell you why. Would y'all drive a Ferrari if it had no brakes? No. Right? What good is a Ferrari if it's got no brakes? So your body is only going to go as fast as you can slow down. Same thing when I was going through those upper body rotation exercises, the power ones. You should be doing those on both sides. Because if your body knows that you can't decelerate or accelerate in the opposite direction, it's never going to go all out in the direction you want it to go. It's like having a governor on your car. Okay? You're only going to allow it to go as fast as you let it go in the opposite direction. So if you don't work on hitting the brakes, your body will never say, okay, I'll let you go as fast as you want to go. Okay? It's a safe mode mechanism in our brain and how our nervous system is wired. So we always want to work on decelerating constantly. Okay? And also working in the opposite direction. So those med ball throws, you should be doing them in your dominant way and your non-dominant way. When you start with jumps, the goal should be make it as quiet as you can. The box actually decreases my speed of going into the landing. So if I were to jump, in the next one you'll see, if I jump just off the floor and land on the floor, gravity has more time to speed up my body, right? The longer I'm in the air, the faster I'm going to be hitting the floor, which means more force. Okay, my body has to learn to absorb that. When you have a box, I'm jumping up, I think that is 18 or 24 inches, I can't remember, but when I jump up, I'm actually only decelerating about 3 to 6 inches, okay? And that allows gravity to not have as much effect on me, and I can hit the brakes a little bit easier. And then next, now we're going to load it up. Some light implement lower body power. So those are light dumbbells. I think they're 5s or 10s. It doesn't need to be much, okay? But I'm still trying to absorb that landing. Getting full extension, getting tall. Good. So, next one. Now we're going to incorporate the ground force that we want to get vertical, but also that rotational aspect as well. Okay? So, this one's similar to that last one with the disassociation, with that side toss. This has a similar effect as well. You're going to see me turn the shoulders and then create the power through my lower body. Also notice where my feet are landing. Almost in the same exact spot every time. So, the reason for this drill is, yes, we want to create rotational force, but learning how to use the ground. A lot of times what you'll have with golfers is you'll put them in a swivel chair, and you'll have their feet on the floor, and you'll say, hey, turn into your backswing. And they're like, what do you mean? I'm like, spin the chair. Or you'll have them go into their normal one. That teaches them how to use their feet to create rotation. So in this jump, it teaches you how to create rotation. In your backswing, your right heel, left toe, if you're a right-hander. On my downswing, I'm left heel, right toe, right? So I have to be able to change that ground force through my feet at the blink of an eye. And if you don't have the ability to do that, and you'd be surprised at how many golfers don't. The other thing that can even do it, get in a swivel chair if you have one at home, your work desk chair, put one foot on the ground. So if you struggle to do the spin, break it down to one side and figure out which side is the bad one that can't figure it out, right? Because a lot of times if you're putting feet on the ground and you have a hard time figuring out how to spin the chair, a lot of times it's just one leg that's not doing it properly. And train that. So practice swiveling in your work chair on your breaks, all right? So, any questions? I know we kind of answered them throughout the seminar, but any other questions that have come up? Awesome. Got something, Mark? Yeah. Oh, of course not. Yeah.
So, my question is about rotation. Like, I can turn back.
Yeah.
But I can't get as far forward anymore.
Yeah.
My range of motion is now back, but I can't. How do I get more range of motion?
In your golf swing or the shoulder, or both?
Both. Get both there.
Yeah. So kind of like I mentioned earlier, remember your turn, whether it's your backswing or your downswing, is all of your joints combined in rotation, right? It's not just how much I can do this or how much I can turn my hips. It's a combination of all of those. So if you're lacking the ability to turn here, what you can do, and obviously this is something a golf swing coach would probably tell you, would be if you flared this front foot out. Because then you can add more rotation. Even if you have good hip rotation, you can add more by flaring the foot out, which can allow you to turn a little bit more into it. So you can change one of those joints along the way to increase the total, if that makes sense. So, you might not need to because you actually have really good hips. I've worked with you. You have good hip rotation or good range of motion in your hip, but if you're still lacking here and it's hard for you because of an injury, you could say, in the meantime, if I flare this foot, I'll get just a little bit more. If I turn this foot 10 degrees, that means I can turn 10 degrees more up here, right?
I'm flaring a lot.
Yeah, and for yours it's partially an injury, so I would say working on your injury or your recovery from your injury more than trying to change your golf swing, because your golf swing was fine before. Really for you with the injury, it's trying to get the injury back to as close to what it was prior. And you're still kind of going, I know you just finished the rehab, but you're still kind of going through that recovery process after, because it never stops after your PT. There's still things, they kind of get you to where you can get through your daily life and comb your hair and put things on a shelf, but that doesn't mean you can go play golf and be perfect just yet.
Having had more surgeries than I'm going to share.
Yeah.
Because I did play sports.
Yeah.
Most people have an unrealistic expectation post, for instance, rotator cuff, knee surgery, etc.
Yeah.
9 months to a year is a good idea.
Yeah.
You feel good after 2 months, and you think you're Superman. After 4 months, you get depressed. If you sit out and say 9 months a year, I'm going to work at it slow and steady, you get back. If you do the other,
Yeah.
the rest of the doctor's about.
Yeah, and I'm a perfect example. So I've had rotator cuff and labrum surgery on this right shoulder. I can show you one of the screens that we do. We actually check out your shoulders for golf, and I know I did this one with you during your consultation, but this is my left side, and I want to see, baseline would be my forearm gets even with my spine. So I'm maybe just slightly behind, okay? If I go to my right arm, actually, no, this is normal.
That's normal.
This is normal. This was my surgery arm. Yep. You're going to have more, if you're a right-hander, you're going to have more external rotation. That is normal. This, or I should say optimal, is probably a better word to use. You should want to be able to get more than your spine. Okay? So now people are going to compensate, because what most people do is I say rotate your shoulder, and they do this. And they arch the lower back. Yeah, I'm good. I'm like, well, then you had to compensate and gain it from somewhere else, which just means compensation and injuries and movement patterns. So a lot of times I got to get them to crunch and then go back. But that's, for you to get a green on that screen, you need to be past it. The next step we do is we check to see if you have the stability to do that. So now I'll put you back in that golf posture. I want to see if you can control that. Because a lot of times you'll see someone, a lot of times females unfortunately, is they have more lax joints, they have more range of motion. So they'll be here, you put them into this golf position where gravity has more in effect, and they'll be like this. Because they don't have the strength to control them back to this motion, which is also an issue. Because if you have excess range of motion compared to the stability that you can control, risk of injury goes up. So anybody, if you ask me, who do you want, a tight client or a mobile client, golf might be slightly different, but in general, I'm going to want the person who's more tight, because they're going to have a less chance of getting hurt and probably less chance of blaming me. But in general, someone who has more range of motion or being hyperflexible like a gymnast and things like that, typically risk of injury skyrockets if you're hypermobile. And it's because they tend to lack the stability to meet where their mobility or flexibility is.
Yeah, that's what the ortho guy told me.
Yep.
He said part of the cause of my problems with rotator cuff was just what you said.
Yep.
I was over-rotated, and then I kept doing things over-rotated, which isn't what
Yeah.
it's meant to do.
Yep. So we do a lot of drills where I'm having you stabilize shoulders, like doing something like a get up or an overhead kettlebell carry, where we're packing that shoulder, creating stability, and you having to control motions from up here. So there's a lot of exercises that we can do to work on something like that. So like if I was working with you, Mark, there would be a lot of things where I'm working on just active range of motion, getting you to create muscle strength on the backside to get you into that position. Because you go to PT, and if you've been in surgeries, PT gets in there and they crank the hell out of your arm, right? And they try to get you there because they know from a PT standpoint, there's a window of opportunity for them to get the range of motion before your body just tightens up and tissue starts creating scar tissue. So from a PT standpoint, they have to do that. But once they get you to a certain point, the goal should be that you should be able to get there without someone cranking you into that position. So a lot of the things we do would be like floor slides. I'd have you lay on the floor, press your forearms into the ground, and trying to go into motions and working that while maintaining good core position as well is going to strengthen your stabilizers in the back, but also increase your range of motion too. So, yeah. Yep. So, anything else? Any other questions?
I have one more thing, at least one.
I figured you had at least something. I looked at you. I knew.
In watching the golfers today, mostly at address and in their backswing, from the exercises and the technology that they use, these muscles are overdeveloped. I'm seeing on even Jordan Spieth, who used to be a slight little guy.
Yeah.
You know, I saw him yesterday making a turn, and these muscles right here just bulge out of his golf shirt.
Yeah.